On this week's episode, it's another edition of Portugal Property Talks, where I'm joined once again by the chairman of the Leisure Launch Group, David Patricio. This week, we talk about the buying process in Portugal. For those of you listening, head over to our YouTube channel to watch some of this episode. And for those of you watching, click down below and subscribe. And for the full podcast episode, go to Stitcher, Spotify, Google, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. And now over to my conversation with David. Welcome back, or welcome to another episode of Portugal, The Simple Life. And it's another edition of Portugal Property Talks with David Patricio. David, how are you? Welcome back.
I'm good, Dylan. Nice to be back as always.
Because we like to keep this short, but because we also like to talk about food, what are you having for lunch? What are you having for lunch in a little while?
Today, I've got my house is full of family. You know, when you live in Portugal, we talk about our occupancy. Our occupancy at home goes dramatically up in the summer months, or as we approach the summer months. So today, because I've been eating so much, I think today I'm going to have some robalo, some nice fresh sea caught robalo, nicely grilled, split, open. Oh my God, just with salt and a bit of garlic. And
does it come with the head?
Olive oil.
And does it come with the head?
Oh, always. And the eyes. I need to know that it's fresh.
Exactly. So last time we spoke about the appointing a realtor, finding a realtor, having someone that you can trust, talking those conversations, all of those important things. So for people that haven't heard, go back and listen to the last Portugal Property Talks about finding a realtor. But now let's talk about the next step. So imagine the listener or the buyer in this point has found their realtor. They've spent time with the realtor, looked around and found the property that they want. Let's talk about the next steps that the buyer takes in acquiring the property here in Portugal. So what will be the next step once they've found the property that they want?
Yeah, well, the process here in Portugal can be different too. I mean, we don't know where our listeners or your listeners, which country in the world they're sitting in. But the process here in Portugal is quite simple. There's obviously the legal process and then what's customary in the market. Probably we'll start with what's customary in the market, which makes it different to other countries, is initially we make a reservation. That would be your first option. What happens with a reservation? It's a very low percentage. Normally, most companies will most developers will take a 1% reservation, which basically shows on the day that there's intent to purchase, and then obviously so that the legal process can follow, financing can be applied for, all of these kind of things, lawyers can prepare contracts. What we want to do is we want to secure the property so that the developer takes it off the market. And what the reservation process basically does is it removes the property from the market, giving the buyer time to begin the purchase process or the preparing of contracts or the purchase agreement here.
Okay, so the purpose of that, and normally that 1% forms part of the overall cost. It's not an extra fee. It's just literally to secure the property for the client.
Exactly. This will vary from developer to developer, but in most cases it's 1%. Some will ask for a couple of €1,000, but it's really just to remove the property from the market so that you can go and prepare yourself.
Okay, and then let's just talk about that CPCV, because it is a legally binding document. It's there. The key word is there, purchase and sale. It's there to protect both parties. Yeah. Just give us a little bit of more information about what that entails, that contract.
The purchase and sale agreement will always have obviously the details of the sellers, both the buyer and the seller. It will have the details of the property. So the description of the property is most likely not to be the residential address of the property, but more than the deed information that property will have, where it was registered, in which council or parish it was registered in which deeds office or land registry it has been registered in. All of that information will appear on the contract. The other will be the terms of the contract. Obviously, the price, the purchase price of the property or the selling price of the property, The terms of payment, so it will refer to our reservation fee, which we've already given over to the seller to secure the property, to remove it from the market. It will also have the remainder of the deposit, because at this point in the purchase agreement, you have to give a deposit, so probably 20 or 25%. This will vary, so please don't hold me to it, but this can vary depending on the state of the property, but 20-25% seems to be the market average. It will also then have at the terms of when the deed is expected to be done. So if it's a ready-built property, or if it's a plot of land, then they may say 30 days, 60 days. These things are normally negotiated, or always negotiated beforehand between the buyer and the seller. The lawyer will guide the seller in terms of, the buyer at least, in terms of how long he will need to prepare all the documentation and prepare himself for deed. If there's some financing involved or mortgage involved, then obviously the lawyer will have spoken to the bank to get a sense from the bank how long they need so that they can prepare the deed date.
From there, I mean, we'll have a lot of listeners that are looking at buying properties that are in construction. Let's try to kind of just split it up a little bit. So if it's a case of an apartment, then the next step is really title deed at the local at the public notary. We'll get into that now. If it's a house that's to be built, the next step from them owning the plot will be a construction contract.
Yeah, houses tend to be a safer investment because there's effectively two stages in them. One is the first part of the transaction will be the purchase of the land. So there will be a deed which is done in a fairly short period of time, where the buyer becomes the owner of the land. And then simultaneously, there's a contract which is signed with the contractor who will be building the house, or that the buyer has bought. So there are effectively two contracts: a purchase agreement and a construction contract that are signed simultaneously. In this case, what will happen is that why it gives more security is because the owner of the land is the owner of the construction. So if something ever happens to the contractor, you know you're secured because whatever you've invested on is still on your land.
Once this is all done, once the house is ready, it then goes through a licensing process. We've mentioned in a previous episode that a lot of the time builders don't take care of this. Is something that you guys as a leisure launch group take care of for the client, is get the house licensed. But it's very clear what the buyer has at the end of all of this, whether it be an apartment or a house. It's all on a public database. You mentioned it before when we do everything at a notary. It's registered. This person owns X property in X address from day one.
Yeah, in Portugal, there's many things that people can possibly say about Portugal, but in this regard, wow, the system is perfect. It's really difficult for them to improve on this. There is no chance in Portugal that two people will own the same property. The system works so well. The life of the property is registered from the time that it was a farm and it was split, and they track the ownership. Everything gets registered, what mortgages were held, what liens there were on that property. All of that is very, very, very transparent here in Portugal. So from a security point of view, people have a lot of security. Hence the reason it's no surprise that, I mean, foreigners have been coming to Portugal since the 60s to have their holiday homes. We have, on your one hand, can you count the times that people have had challenges in terms of their ownership? Whereas in our neighbors alongside, I won't mention who they are. Yes, that is
Spain.
Oops.
Sorry, I let it slip out.
But I think that's what makes Portugal just that much safer and that much more attractive for investors.
Just an important part of this, and we've mentioned a few times, we don't like to give lawyers a lot of airtime and credit. You know, they're not our favorite people, but people, especially doing business in a foreign country, you need to have a lawyer accompany you through all of these steps.
It's essential that you have a lawyer. You know, when I always say to people, this is probably the second biggest in most families that I meet. This will be the second biggest investment that they make in their lives. Why would you put yourself at risk by trying to do it yourself.
Yeah.
I know the system it's very simple here in Portugal. Me as a Portuguese citizen, as a Portuguese resident in the business, I obviously don't need lawyers. I don't always use them because I don't really need them, but I speak the language, I understand how the law works, and I know that if I find a house that I like or a plot of land that I like and everything's in order, I can go to deed straight away. I don't need the intervention of a lawyer. But a foreign person, it is essential that you have a lawyer. One, because of the language challenges, the way that the laws work. You need that. You need that support of a lawyer to accompany you through the process. Is it expensive as a relative thing? I think it's well worth the investment. That the lawyer may charge you, yes.
All right. We don't want to, we don't want to end on the last terms of talking about lawyers, but just to recap, the process is super simple, protects the buyer, everything is registered, and there's very, very little risk to no risk for the buyer.
Very little risk and completely transparent. There is nothing, there is no, there are countries that I obviously, because I'm in the business, there are places like the UK where it can take up to 6 months to register a property. What transparency is there in this process? Whereas here in Portugal, couple of weeks, people, when they ask me how long will it take me to register a property or to do the process, 30 days is perfect.
Amazing.
Perfectly reasonable. I find that in most cases, it's really the buyer that needs more time, whereas the sellers are generally ready, especially if they're professionals, they're ready to do deeds immediately. But most importantly is the transparency of the system. Our system here is very transparent. So makes doing business, certainly in real estate, very, very easy.
Awesome. David, thank you so much. I'm going to let you go eat your fish.
I'm dying for it. You know that I was wondering how long we were going to take with this.
I don't want to keep you. I don't want to keep you. So I'm going to let you call it.
It's a wrap.
So thank you once again to our guest, and thank you to all of you for listening. Please subscribe, share with your friends, give us a thumbs up, and please leave a comment or a review. We always love to hear from you. Don't forget, Portugal The Simple Life also has a magazine, so download it. It's for free. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. And as we say in Portugal, sejas bem-vindo. Welcome to The Simple Life.